Today we're going to make continuous bias binding. You're going to start with a square. I have a 16-inch square because that's what's going to fit the placemats that we made last week. You're going to start by cutting a line from corner to corner. If your square is bigger than your ruler, you're going to want to take a marking utensil and draw the line before you cut it. But since my ruler fits from corner to corner, I'm just going to go ahead and cut. Okay. Oh, I may need a new blade. Then we're going to take our bottom square, our bottom triangle, and we're going to move it to the top. Okay. Then we're going to take our bottom triangle and we're going to flip it on top. And what you want is at these corners here, you want this little point to be a 1/4 inch past and a 1/4 inch past. That way when we start to sew, we start directly on the line. Then we're going to sew a 1/4 inch seam and you're going to want to open that seam. Now that we have the seam sewn and open, we're going to flip it over, okay? And you're going to be using this side and the long side, not the short sides, okay? And I know we're gonna cut off part of this, but it's the only way we can get it in the camera, okay? From the long side, you're going to measure the width of your binding. I'm going to do my binding 2.5 inches, so I'm going to measure 2.5 inches. When you lay your ruler down, be careful not to push too hard. Because this is a biased edge, it will stretch very easily. And we're just gonna go ahead and we're just gonna draw our lines. And you're gonna draw as many as you can fit in. I will below have a link to a continuous bias binding to tell you how many inches and how big your square needs to be below. Okay. We're gonna just keep drawing the lines. So far this isn't bad. All right, this little bit of extra here that doesn't make a 2.5 inch line, that's perfectly fine. We will cut that off at the end. Don't worry about it. Okay. All right, now we have to sew this edge to this edge. So we're gonna flip it over. I'm gonna do this so you can kind of see. Okay. Most people would think that you need to lay it like this and make the lines line up. That is the exact opposite thing that you want to do. If you do that, you're just gonna have a tube that has no beginning and no end. What you want to do is take the first line and line it up with the seam that we sewed, and then make the rest of the lines line up. See how it's off center by one here and one here? Okay, so line up, line up, line up. Then we're gonna pin it together, and you're gonna have to offset it 1/4 inch from each side. And it's gonna be super funny how we have to hold it together, and we're gonna sew that seam. So I'm gonna lay it out one more time so we can see it, okay? So it's not the corner that matches up to that seam, it's the first line, okay? And then we're gonna sew directly on that seam with 1/4 inch, and we're gonna open that seam. Before I sew this, I just wanted to show you how it's pinned. It looks super crazy, I know. But you're gonna wanna pin it, again, with that edge sticking out to the seam. And if you notice, these lines don't line up perfect. They're 1/4 inch apart from each other. If you can't eyeball this, you can draw a 1/4 inch line here and a 1/4 inch line here, and then take your pin and push it through and make sure that it hits both of those lines. Now that you have it sewn, you're gonna iron this seam open. And see, it's an offset tube. Then you're gonna start at the side that has the binding, and we're just gonna cut all the way around. I'm gonna get bigger scissors than these. These are a little too small. So I'm gonna get my big gingers. And you cannot use a rotary blade for this, you have to use scissors. And it's okay if it's a little off, because it's binding, it's not the end of the world if you don't cut it exactly perfect. Okay, and we're just gonna keep cutting all the way around. And you're gonna cut the whole thing. And when you get to this edge here that has the one that's too small, you're just gonna cut it off. Now it's all cut. You're just gonna take it and you're gonna fold it over and press it right sides out, and you have your bias binding. Look at that. All one piece. Isn't that great? All right, I'll see you next week.